Going to hear from David Shearer.
Thank the Minister for taking the floor to try and explain that, but that particular issue around the reduction of 3 members to 2 under Clause 4. And on one hand, I am a little more satisfied that this is not going to become the norm, which is what Phil Goff was just saying just now as part of his contribution. On the other hand, I'm still vexed and actually somewhat quite concerned that while she has said that this is the 2-person panel would be site-specific, and I can understand that because there's a lot of issues to be looked at, but it's not going to be a decision-making process. That does actually create some concerns because these people are going to be tasked with the job and given the responsibility to make recommendations around a particular issue, yet will not be able to make that decision and will cast that back to a wider group who have not been part of hearing the submissions and hearing the evidence, and therefore will not be fully apprised of the information in order to make that decision. So in some ways, sir, it's comforting to know that this is going to be, as I perhaps the words in the Minister's mouth, exceptional rather than the common occurrence, but at the same time is not going to be able to make a decision or make recommendations which will have to be passed back to people who have not been part of hearing the evidence around that. Now, I don't believe, sir, that is a good way of making decisions on issues. And I know from my own personal experience and being an Auckland MP that people are extraordinarily worried about some of the issues, whether it be height to boundary, whether it be the concentration of houses, whether a whole range of different heritage buildings, a whole range of different issues. So that raises, I believe, yet another concern that we have certainly as Auckland MPs and what we're looking at in terms of this legislation. The second part in terms of the Minister's contribution that I want to pick up on is the issue that Ron Mark made before, which is that 3 down to 2 means that we actually don't have a deciding vote. Now, we're not going to vote on this, I understand that from the Minister, but we may have instead two competing recommendations coming back from that 2-person panel, from which there is going to be a decision made without actually understanding the full ramifications of the evidence that is heard. And so that seems to me to make the situation worse rather than better. So we have dug ourselves into a hole of complexity and bad decision-making around this that will provide Sir Auckland with no real feeling that they have been that they are getting a better process rather than a worse one at the end of this. So I thank the Minister for standing up and taking that brief call on Clause 4, but it still does not address some of the other issues. And I want to come on to Clause 7, sir, after, and I'm sure there'll be other people who want to pick up on the Minister's contribution just now as well. But Clause 7, which is the expansion of the hearings panel from 7 to 10. And once again, I think we support that, and I can see the merits in having an expansion from in the numbers excluding the chair. But the choice and the decision about who is going to be on that hearings panel, sir, is something that the Minister hasn't addressed. And I actually think that this actually does cut to the choice of whether Auckland can decide who's going to be on that panel, or whether it has to be done centrally and top down. And I want to come to the, I think, the very good SOP that Phil Twyford's brought up as part of that, and that is to have the Mayor, the Auckland Mayor, involved. Mr. Chair.
I call Joanne